Hey guys and gals, this is Adam with Irata Non Grata, and back for more Nuon stuff, since it seems like people are interested in Nuon to some degree. I guess there's just not a lot of stuff out there about it. Now, way back in the day, I ran a Nuon fan site called Castle Nuon. And so that's where I have a Nuon collection. It's not something that I've put together now. I got it back when it was new and fresh. And I was a big fanboy of it, in good part because it seemed like the successor to the Jaguar, the Atari Jaguar. And so that's how a lot of us saw it. But what I'm going to show you today is something that came from another fan site called Nuon Dome, and they put together this disc called Games and Demos. And so within the Nuon community, there was always these, you could call them maybe rumors, whatnot, of these demos that had been designed for the Nuon, but nobody had really seen anything. Of course, this was like between 1998 to 2000 when you would hear about these things like, oh, somebody ported Doom over to the Nuon hardware within a weekend or something like that. And that there was also this Raytracing demo. And so just again, early on in the internet, you didn't get videos of everything, and like we do nowadays. And so I guess this is making up for that. But let's jump into it. So this disc does not work on all Nuon players, from my understanding. I have a Samsung N2000, and I don't think it works on that, as that was the first gen Nuon. This is running on my Samsung N501 Nuon enhanced DVD player. And here we go, the Nuon bootloader. And so you can play Atari 2600 Pac-Man. It has an Atari 800 emulator on it. It's a game called Bomb, Breakout, Chomp, which is another Pac-Man one. Chomp, Champion or Tournament Edition, Decaying Orbit, which was one of the very, very few homebrew Nuon games. This is something that's definitely not big in the Nuon space. Is just never had a following enough to create a lot of homebrews. And so this is one of those very, very few. And this came out years ago. I haven't heard of any Nuon games in recent memory, like in the past 10 years. I haven't heard of anything, but I could have missed something. Doom, of course. And this was, like it was claimed to have been ported in just a weekend. And these same game puzzle things, like VM Labs Top Brass at one point decided they wanted a lot of casual things for the Nuon, because it was going into DVD players, wanted to get it into a bunch of homes and whatnot. But here's something that shows that Battlesphere, the fabled Atari Jaguar homebrew game, I could call it homebrew, but it was being partially funded by Atari at one point, as I recall. So one of the guys who developed that, I believe, had pitched Battlesphere to the for the Nuon, but they turned it down because, again, Top Brass wanted more casual stuff instead of hardcore things. It's too bad we didn't get that. How you do Hello World on there. And then this is the one I'm going to really focus on for this particular video, is Raytracing. Now, one thing about the Nuon that is unique is that it had no hardware acceleration for anything. It didn't have hardware polygons, hardware sprites, anything like that. Everything was designed to run in software, but the hardware itself was designed to be powerful enough that you could just do kind of what you wanted to if you're really good at assembly coding. You could, in a good assembly coder could get 7 instructions per cycle on the Nuon, and it's just because it was basically made as an assembly coder's dream. That's part of the problem, is that a lot of the stuff on here is not super impressive. But let's go back here and see what this is like. Now, of course, ray tracing, real-time ray tracing, is very famous these days because both NVIDIA and AMD and Intel, all of those guys have real-time ray tracing support in some of their latest graphics cards. But of course, ray tracing has been done since the 80s. Like the old Commodore Amiga could do a ray traced image, but as I've heard, I don't know how accurate this is, but it took like 7 hours for it to draw a single frame. And so because it's such a computationally expensive sort of thing that you didn't really get real-time ray tracing up until more modern times in most cases. Except for here with the Nuon DVD player, you could get real-time ray tracing in the year 2000. So here you go. And this was designed by Jeff Minter, according to the credits on here. But also there was Eric Smith mentioned as somebody who contributed to this. And so you can actually move the still ball around, but as far as I'm aware, everything in this scene is ray traced for 180 lines, 480p maybe. I mean, it said 480p from what I can recall, but at the same time you look at this and you can definitely see interlacing, so I don't know. But 30 frames a second, real-time ray tracing on a DVD player from the year 2000. Or technology from the year 2000. Okay, so we can go up and down using A and B. Looks like none of my other controls really do anything. Oh, except for that. It's kind of weird. But, yeah, that's one. Let's see. Let's go back and try... Oops, wrong one. Let's try Ray Trace 2. So here, instead of moving the steel ball, you got to move the light source for it and see. Now, it does seem like it's drawing things a little bit slower here with what I assume is a dynamic light source. But still, real-time ray tracing on a DVD player. Of course, back on the CRT TVs, I don't remember it having some of these odd effects on these balls where it's like some of the colors bleeding through from the background. I don't remember that. So maybe it's the newer stuff. And this square thing in the middle, that's the VM Labs logo. So they were, again, the developers of the Nuon hardware. But yeah, kind of cool. Let's push start, and here's Mandelbrot. So you can go around like this, and yeah, we could zoom in on it. Starts to get a bit slow when you get in real close. Let's go over here. I've seen this a lot of times, these sort of fractal or Mandelbrot fractals, whatever, out there. Just never seemed like it was anything useful other than saying, hey, our computer chip can do math. But perhaps I'm wrong. So, given that demo that I just showed you, you might be wondering, well, were there any games released for the Nuon that actually used real-time ray tracing? And now back, if you were like me and looking up everything you possibly could said about the Nuon, which was also known as Merlin and then Project X for the longest time, and then they came out with Nuon, which at the time a lot of us in the community were not very enthusiastic about. Project X sounded cool, Nuon sounded weird, there was a lot of claims about what the Project X hardware could do, and it was enough that there were rumors that it scared Sony into developing the PlayStation 2 to be more powerful than it was originally going to be, but who knows if that's actually true or not. But there was claims of, since it was such a versatile chip and powerful chip at the time, that it could do more than just polygons, and it could do more than just sprites, that it could also do voxels, that it could do what were called NURBs and Smurfs, and like you might remember with the PlayStation 2, there was talk about it being capable of doing this thing called NURBs, and that was because Nuon supposedly could do that too. But on top of all that, it could do things like real-time ray tracing. And so what I've got here is, this is the Nuon interactive sampler disc that came with my Samsung Xtiva, and this was one of the few things that I had to use with my Nuon because it came with Ballistic, and I got it in June 2000, and there were no games released for the Xtiva until December 2000. It was kind of irritating. I mean, at the very least, it was a DVD player, so I could watch DVD movies, but being somebody who was more into this for the games, only having one game kind of sucked. But there was lots of talk about games that were coming to the Nuon, as you've seen showing here. But let's pull up the one game that was said to be using real-time ray tracing, called aMaze. And as it says, it's based on the classic board game that challenges you to tilt the board in order to roll a steel ball through a nerve-wracking maze of trap holes. Simple in theme, yet elegant in graphic nature, aMaze is best described as an overall experience that is highly addictive to all types of gamers, from hardcore to mainstream. aMaze is an engaging game for everyone. And so, let's play the clip. But like I said, the answer to whether or not any release game used real-time ray tracing is no, because this game never got released. Now, it was shown quite a bit, such as on this demo disc, and it was talked about in plenty of other circles. The copyright date on this video is 1999. Now, I don't know how early this footage is that they're showing here, how far along the game got before it was canned. But as you saw there a moment ago, when it uses the still ball, that's supposedly when it's using real-time ray tracing. And sorry, the squeaking's coming from my dog who wants to keep playing with squeaky toys. But anyways, this game, it's kind of a mystery as to who Fungus Amungus was and what happened to it, because between the Nuon launching in the summer of 2000 and its death a year later in 2001, it was expected that this game would be popping up, and it never did. And we never really heard anything about it, never heard much about this, who Fungus Amungus was, other than that they were based in San Francisco, which is around where VM Labs was based. So I don't know if it was some friends of the guys at VM Labs or just a little company set up by some of the employees of VM Labs. But either way, had this been released, then yes, this would have been one of the first games to employ real-time ray tracing that the general public would have been able to play. But what I would really like to know is what happened to this game. What happened to the source code and the assets and everything, because one sad thing about being a Nuon fan is that there's been very few developments. As I mentioned on that demo disc, there have been almost no homebrews, and there were quite a few unreleased games mentioned for it, this among many others that aren't on this interactive sampler. But as far as I'm aware, none of them have ever come to light. And this game looks like it was close to finished. I mean, still, this obviously could have used some polishing. There's some instances where the frame rate drops and whatnot, and some of them where there's no background, like here, whereas there was a background previously. But again, don't know how early this footage was. And so maybe there has to be, I'd hope, some source code out there or something that the game still exists out there and on some floppies or something. Of course, by now, 23 years later, it's very possible that it could have been lost. But if anybody out there knows what Fungus, who was involved with Fungus Amungus, or you were, or you knows what happened to this game, I'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to see this get a release. I mean, there is Songbird Productions, who works on bringing retro games to retro systems, and particularly with the Nuon. I think it would be pretty amazing to see this game get a release, even if it wasn't fully complete or there wouldn't be a way to get it finished. Then that would be still great. But otherwise, all we have is this video here to show, and of course, the chances of somebody else coming along and doing some homebrew stuff and making this thing do a game with real-time ray tracing seems pretty minimal. But yeah, let me know what you think about all of that, and we'll see you around.